Okay, in recent weeks, when we have done this, it has brought some of the best conversation about this football team going. If you care about Tennessee Titans football, you need to listen to this. Okay, Terry, question number one. It's now been several weeks since John Robinson got fired. What is the latest on how the Titans intend to conduct the search for a GM?
Well, they've been keeping mostly quiet. Ryan Cowden has kind of been operating the controls of the personnel department since John Robinson departed. The search will involve obviously Cowden and a couple of other in-house candidates. Brian Gardner, Monty Ossenfort may be in that conversation. Then they'll have to go outside and look at some people. They'll also have to make sure that there's at least one Rooney Rule candidate included on that list. I got to believe that Mike Vrabel is going to have a big, strong say in this. He may not make the decision, but he's going to have a lot of influence in who gets this job. And, to my way of thinking on this, and this is no disrespect to Cowden or anyone else who is inside these walls here at St. Thomas Sports Park, but it almost feels like that this roster needs a fresh set of eyes from the outside to examine it and see who fits, who doesn't, and what direction they need to go.
Watson?
Before we go even further, have you heard at all about the relationship with John and Mike since all this went down? Because I really wonder that
I have not.
if Mike's still tight with John or if they've completely parted ways now, that would be real interesting to know where that relationship is.
Yeah, John has kind of gone on the down low. Haven't seen or heard much out of him since all this went down just over a month ago. And Mike right now is focused on running this football team and trying to find a way to sneak this team into the back door of the playoffs on Saturday night. So my guess would be that any relationship that they have right now is probably on hold until after the season is over because Vrabel is going to be in tune with everything going on inside the building. And obviously, Robinson no longer has that responsibility.
Well, let me try it this way with both of you. Let's say that Josh Dobbs really plays well on Saturday and leads the Titans to a playoff berth. Watson, should that give Cowden the leg up on everybody else because it was his move to get Dobbs?
Was it? We don't know that. Is it Mike's move? My question was asked because I wonder who's really in charge. And to let a GM go when you're in the middle of a season is one thing. But when you let a GM go when you're in the middle of season, when you're picking people up right and left every day because of all the injuries we've had, is another. And that's why I wonder who's making these calls right now. Is Mike now kind of making the calls and our guy under John is sending them through? It's hard for me still to know a direction they're going till I see it all work out. And why did this go down? And was Mike a big part of it going down? Or was Mike absolutely distraught when it went down, which if he was distraught when it went down, then his confidence in the higher ups and he'll start putting up a shield in some way. There's still a lot more to this, and we've kind of let it go because we have to let it go. But I'm just sitting back and watching because I think it's going to work itself out and we're going to see. I still say that is really a powerful move to get rid of John right in the middle of all the problems we were having and trying to find people to bring in for all the injured guys we have. That's not a great time to let a guy go and have to restructure everything that you're doing. Am I off my rocker here, guys, or is it just my thought, I guess?
Well, I don't think you're off your rocker at all. I mean, it's a fair question. I think, basically, I would say the way that they're probably doing it right now in the interim is sort of the status quo. It may not be John Robinson, obviously bringing bodies in to evaluate anymore, but they have people who are, in the pro side of personnel, as well as scouts on the draft side, that evaluate these people and prospects and say, these are guys that would fit the things that we want to do with this football team. My guess is that Ryan Cowden and the pro side scouting staff probably brought Josh Dobbs to their attention. One of the things that I asked Vrabel the other day was kind of how it came about, because they had no coach on the staff had coached Josh Dobbs at all. Nobody had any knowledge of him other than what little film study they may have done or evaluation they may have done on him when he was a free agent or when he was coming out of Tennessee 6 years ago. So they basically took a chance on this guy from what little film they'd seen, from what evaluations they may have done in the past, his reputation as being a really intelligent, cerebral type of guy. They took a chance there. And, I would have to say that probably Ryan Cowden and his staff were probably the people that were, pointing them in that direction, because Vrabel did say that they examined a bunch of names. The usual way that this works, if you're replacing somebody in season and you're replacing somebody, especially at the quarterback position, you bring in guys, you bring 3 or 4 or 5 of them in on an off day. You have them throw a little bit, you have them run a little bit, you talk to them a little bit, and you find the one guy that you go, I like this guy the best of these 4. And so you assign that guy. But when you're pulling somebody off another team's practice squad, you are absolutely flying blind. You're ordering the product online and hoping it fits. And that's what they did here with Josh Dobbs.
Yeah, and I do think there was a major advantage that he played in this state. I just think that's a major advantage. And people watched him play every week at the University of Tennessee. And that was my feeling. I'd watched the young man play a bunch of times. I've seen him respond the right way to a lot of critical situations. And I remember, Terry, as soon as it happened, I said, ooh, now that is the best move I've seen him make in a while. I immediately said that. And so I think it helped that he did play in this state and there was a background, but it's still, I bring that up just because I think it'll lead to the future. As we talk about where the Titans are now and where they got to go, who's going to be making these decisions in the future? And is it already set in-house that that's what's going to be? We don't know that yet. But if it is, I would say Mike Vrabel has really upped his status in power of what is drafted and what is brought in free agency. If they keep it the way it is now, I don't think it ever looks good when you fire the top dog and then you hire the guy underneath him. I just don't think it looks good. And but to me, I think that's kind of where this is headed right now.
So,
well, it could be. They seem to have had a tendency would be the right word, to promote from within a lot of times. That's what happened when Ken Whisenhunt was fired and they went with Mike Mularkey as the next head coach. There's only been a few times really that they've done that. They brought in Mike Vrabel at the recommendation of John Robinson, but most of the time they've played it fairly close to the vest in terms of, going with what they have been familiar with and what they know.
So, guys, I want y'all to consider this. In recent State of the Unions that we've done, Terry, you've suggested that they need to be thinking, let's get back to being really good about the time the new stadium opens. And there's certainly a lot of merit to that. But then there's this other side that says, well, you could squeeze one more year out. Tannehill comes back. Derrick Henry's still Derrick Henry. And you could squeeze one more year before you go down that road. Is what goes on Saturday night going to determine which direction they're going?
I don't know that it will 100%. I think a lot of those ideas they've probably been tossing around for several weeks now in terms of what they're doing and how they want to get this thing moving forward. They know that whether they tear it to the ground or whether they bring back Tannehill and Henry and most of this cast of characters that they've had, they know that they've got to get more explosive at wide receiver. They've got to get a better offensive line at almost every position among those 5 spots. And then they've got to have some luck and some good health that they've not had in a couple of years. I think therein probably lies exactly when you examine the cap situation and the rest of this roster, the decision that they're going to have to make boils down to this. Can you afford cap wise to add enough back to go with Tannehill and Henry for one more year and think that this thing is going to, line up, you're going to be healthy, and everything that's gone against you this year is going to go for you next year and break right? If you think that can happen, then you patch it up, you overhaul it a little bit, and you go on down the road with this group. If you don't think there's enough without adding what you can reasonably add in free agency and with maybe a first and second round draft pick, then personally, I think you're better off tearing it up, picking higher in the draft over the next couple of years and just trying to reassemble a different roster with some of these pieces still. Obviously, you can't get rid of all 53 guys that are on your roster, but I think maybe you go in a different direction and you start to get younger and you start to look for the next guy who might be the franchise quarterback too.
See, George, I don't think they're anywhere close to where they were a year ago. A year ago, we were really solid in the offensive line. Our defense had really improved. We had a go-to wide receiver. Tannehill was healthy. Derek was getting back. That was a team that we were the number 1 seed. This team right now doesn't even look like that team at all. So I think there's a lot of decisions to make in the offseason. I don't think it has anything to do with this game. I think they've got a lot of decisions to make. And the first one is going to be, what is our next move at quarterback? What are we going to do? Because you cannot go deep in the playoffs and have a franchise NFL team without that guy. Look at everybody that's still in it right now. Nearly every one of them have got a bona fide quarterback. 49ers don't, but most of them do. And the Titans are stuck to me. They've got an older guy that's probably got one more year left if they want to stick with him one more year because of all the money involved. And that's the first decision they better make. They got to come up with a guy. And I don't think they think it's Malik Willis. I just don't. I don't think they do. And if they do, I don't know that they think they got the time to develop him because it's going to take another couple of years to do that. But that's the first big decision to me, Terry, is right there. But this team, to me, Terry, it's not anything close to last year's team. It's not near as good as last year's football. Some of it injury, and some of it we let offensive linemen, we didn't sign some, we didn't improve it. There's a lot of reasons, and of course the quarterback, the big one, but they're not as good as they were a year ago. And so do they think they've got another year with what's on this roster? I don't know that they'll think that like they would last year. They could think that last year. I don't know that they can think that this year, Terry.
Terry, let me add to all of what Watson has given you. Are the Titans, were they caught off guard by how unready Malik Willis was?
That's a good question. Maybe so. I mean, I think they knew he was a project. It seemed to me like that's just a base they left uncovered, because I think when you look at this team and you saw Ryan Tannehill, he'd been such an Iron Man over the last 3 years since he had taken the starting job in 2019 away from Marcus Mariota. I think that was a base they left uncovered because you need a backup quarterback. There are reasons that guys like Case Keenum and Tyrod Taylor and Nick Foles hang around the NFL for a decade or more. It's because they can come in and play halfway decent football for you over a 4 or 5 game stretch if your starter goes out, so that you don't have to rely on a rookie like Malik Willis, who certainly is not ready for that responsibility. It would be different if you had spent a first round draft pick on a quarterback and he's your backup, because spending that type of draft capital in the first round is obviously means that guy is your quarterback of the future. But anything past the second round at the quarterback position is a gamble and a project. And that's what Malik Willis is. He wasn't ready to play at all in terms of, being ready to carry a team that, has playoff aspirations if something happened to Ryan Tannehill. And that's why you saw the desperation move for Josh Dobbs. And they're fortunate it's paid off as well as it has. Here's where I want to ask you guys. If you look at the free agent quarterback market, because here's my thought on this. You're probably not going to finish low enough in the standings to get in there to get a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud in this year's draft. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Probably so.
So if you're going with Malik Willis or you're waiting until 2024 to find your quarterback, if you don't stick with Ryan Tannehill, which I kind of believe they're going to stick with Ryan Tannehill because it's $18 million of dead money if they don't, there's a handful of names that are better than the usual suspects that are out on the free agent market at the quarterback position. I'm going to throw 3 or 4 of them at you. You tell me if you say, yes, I'd take that guy as a bridge quarterback or maybe something to build around, or no, I wouldn't. First name I'll throw.
Hold on here, Terry. Stop there. Let's just tease it. Go to the break, and then about a minute from now, we'll come back and let you reveal those names.
All right.
Right to left on your radio dial. Did I say that? Terry McCormick, Main Street Media. Watson Brown. I don't know what media he represents. Yeah, raise your hand. And then
Tennessee.
And then me. Stay tuned. We have more Titans State of the Union. You're going to want to hear this. Okay, we're in the middle of a Titans State of the Union that's about to get really interesting because Terry has brought to the table the fact that there are probably 3 or 4 quarterbacks a little bit better than normal that are about to enter the market. And I know you're going to start with Derek Carr of the Raiders. Keep going from there.
All right, Derek Carr. You guys, yay or nay? Would you take Derek Carr as the Titans quarterback in 2023 if they move on from Ryan Tannehill?
Watson and I are really going to differ on this. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I don't think they can do away with Ryan Tannehill. So I'll stop with that right now. I don't think that's possible. They're going to have to bring him back. But I'm not a Derek Carr fan. I hadn't seen him play well all year long. I thought in the game here when we had him in Nashville, he didn't make the plays he needed to make to win that game, and he could have won the game, and he didn't make them. I'm not big on Derek Carr. I think he's a winner. I think he's a tough kid, but to spend all that money that it'll take, I just nope, that's not me. And I'm sure George is going the other way, but that's not me.
I'm more open-minded about it probably than you are. A year ago, Derek Carr was pretty darn good. And I would put him pretty close to equal to Tannehill. Better thrower, better deep ball thrower than Tannehill. But keep going. Let's go through some of these names.
For the sake of time, I'm going to leave Tom Brady out of this discussion because that's hatched and rehashed. But the next name I'll throw at you is Baker Mayfield.
Watson, go.
I've always been a Baker fan. I have faded on him recently, but the only way I bring in one of these, Terry, to me is they're my next guy. I'll play with them for the next 5 or 6 years here in this program. And so I'm going to be hard and say, no, but the hard thing is for the Titans, I think they're in a tough spot. I think they're in a really tough spot. They nearly have to keep Ryan because of this money situation. And they're not going to get a high enough draft choice, Terry, to get one of the really good ones. They may have to go the free agent route. I would go Baker Mayfield over Carr. I would do that.
Okay, what you're saying with that is that you've gotten a little more confidence in him because Sean McVay took him and appears to have made some things in a system work better for Baker Mayfield than anybody else has. Couldn't you say the same thing about Derek Carr? That
Could, but I just
something in Josh McDaniels' system has not jived for Derek Carr.
Even the year before, he was good, but he was inconsistent good. And both of those guys, I would put in this mode. They've been around long enough now. The next stop might really put them over the top. I think Baker Mayfield has matured a bunch since he came in as the number one pick. And I'm not sure the next stop, the third stop after where it would be the fourth stop, but this next stop for him, and George, you might be right. The next stop for Derek Carr might be the one where he matures a little bit more, because I thought he was immature when he came into the league personally. And just saying things and loose and yeah, I don't disagree with you, but the Titans are in a tough spot, Terry. Before you even go any further, to me, get you to comment on this, because man, they've got 1 year and they've got to have another guy after that. And do they have 1 year? Will Ryan be healthy enough? And he's a year older, but I know they got one more with him if they want it. And then what do they do? What do they do? I don't know.
You're rolling the dice. If you extend Tannehill with a short extension to give yourself some cap relief right now, then, maybe you kick the can down the road 2 or 3 years, but he's going to be 36, 37 years old by that time. It's going to be interesting to see how they evaluate the quarterback position in this offseason. And with that, we'll go to the next name, Jimmy Garoppolo.
I think Jimmy Garoppolo, I love him because I coached against him for 4 years, and I know him really well as a person and as a player. But I don't think Jimmy is a take you to a Super Bowl guy unless your team is really good. And I mean really good. I think he would be an unbelievable backup as he was to Tom Brady. I think he might be the number one backup in the NFL. I'm telling you, he's a winner. He's tougher than nails, but I'm just not sure he's got that true ability to take you to where the Titans are trying so hard to get to.
Well, first of all, he's been good enough to go as far as an NFC title game with San Fran.
On a really, really good team. That's what I just said.
Absolutely. And
he's got to be on a really good team.
Yeah. And this one right now, he just simply isn't good enough to move that team forward.
That's what I think.
He's a guy that's got to have a lot around him, and what he'll find here is nothing around him other than Derrick Henry and a couple of tight ends.
We're not the team we were a year ago. We're not. No. We don't have the offensive line. We don't have the go-to receiver, and we don't have a healthy quarterback, but that could be fixed. But there's a lot to do around this team, and it's not going to be a 49er type team next year, I don't think.
Terry, when you say extend Ryan Tannehill, what exactly do you mean by that?
Put 2 more years on his contract, lower his base for 2023, kick the cap money down the road a couple of years, and then he's your guy for the next 2 to 3 seasons.
Yeah, but you're almost getting him close to a new stadium.
Right.
He's going to be in no position to be their quarterback at the start of a new stadium.
Well, he would be 37 years old probably at that time. So that's going to be, or maybe even 38. If he's that age, he's definitely in the twilight of his career. And, they probably wouldn't want to do that, but, the options are limited. With that, I'll throw out 3 more names and you guys can banner those about any way you want. One of them is Geno Smith, who's had a career renaissance in Seattle.
Yeah, where
he's thrown for 4,000 yards, but he's also 33 years old. He's probably a little too old to bring in as your guy. The other 2 are Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones, who actually is maybe played himself back into the Giants' plans after they declined his option last year.
Watson, I'm going to assume that Daniel Jones ends up staying with the Giants. And if they were to win a playoff game, you can book that.
Yeah. And that, out of all the ones you said, that would be my favorite. He's young. He has all the twos. He has grown a bunch from year one to year two. I really like him. I've loved his competitiveness as I've watched him play this year, even in his first year. But this year, he's the one of all those names that if they pursued one, to me, that's the one I'd pursue. I don't think the Giants will dare let him go.
So, Terry, let me try this one on you. You brought up Jimmy Garoppolo a minute ago. Don't you think there's a likelihood that Belichick will sort of kick that tire, having had some past history with him? And if Jimmy is willing to go back to New England, should the Titans have an interest in Mac Jones?
Honestly, I don't think Bill's ready to give up on Mac Jones just yet. He spent a first round draft pick on him. So I think he's going to give Mac Jones probably the benefit of the doubt for as long as he can. Now, that said, there were a couple times this year where he pulled him in favor of former Western Kentucky quarterback Bailey Zappi. So if Garoppolo does wind up back with Belichick, it might make Mac Jones expendable. But I just don't see Bill giving up on a guy that he personally drafted to be the Patriots' future franchise quarterback just yet.
Is there a scenario in all this? Because think about what we're doing here. I mean, you've gone 7 or 8 quarterbacks deep, and Watson keeps saying, and he's correct in what he's saying, they're in a tough spot. And I'm asking myself the question, okay, how do you get out of the tough spot? And it seems to me the only way you could do it is to get yourself into a position to trade up by giving away a chip that you have that other people really want.
Well, there's only 2 of those. One of them is Derrick Henry and the other one's Jeffrey Simmons. They need to do everything that they can to keep Jeffrey Simmons around here because he's the linchpin of that defense. I think I think a lot of people would mutiny if they traded Derrick Henry at the end of the year. I don't see that happening. But you could probably throw Kevin Byard in there, but just he's been a war horse and an all pro, but just by the nature of the position he plays, you can't trade a safety and move into the top 5 of the draft.
Watson, I saw you shake your head, but let me ask this question. Forget the fact that they're going to play a winner take all game Saturday night. This team isn't going anywhere in the playoffs, and this team, as it's currently constructed, is only going to go down. It's not going to get better. So don't you have to be open to discuss every option that's out there, including Derrick Henry?
Oh, I absolutely open, but to do it, no way. I don't give up Derrick Henry. He still looks too good to me. You've built a team around him. Your philosophy is around him. You give up Derrick Henry, you completely change your whole philosophy. That's Mike's philosophy. This hasn't been the owners or the John Robinson's philosophy. This is Mike's philosophy. I don't see him giving up Derrick. And that's why I think they're in a tough spot. They got a lot. What it looks to me like they've done, Terry, in an overview here, and I don't know how much longer we got, but I think they fixed their defense in their mind pretty good, and the offense is now what they got to fix. And but
Watson,
the defense
take as long as you want on this.
shape. But the offense to me it's not just quarterback. There's a lot of pieces they got to fix on this offense.
I agree, Watson. I think that what you get into, this offense has a lot of pieces missing, starting with the offensive line. And then whatever you do with the quarterback position, as you said, they're in a tough spot. They can either roll with Ryan Tannehill for one more year, try to draft and develop somebody, hope Malik Willis comes around, or go sign one of these free agent guys and hope that they get somebody that's at least as good as Ryan Tannehill was for them for the past 4 years.
Well, and then Terry, they've still got the problem as a backup. I mean, is Malik Willis good enough to be the backup next year? I'm not sure he is. You get in the same spot again
number
next
11
year.
right there, Josh Dobbs, to be my backup in 2023.
If that's what I think comes out of this weekend. If they win this weekend, he plays well, he's going to be the backup next year. That's what I think. And you can't keep Malik Willis unless you're willing to put a third quarterback on the 53-man roster. You're going to put him on the practice squad, somebody grabbing him. He'd be gone.
Well, I've kind of changed my mind on that. I thought that way at the start of the year because he was such a high draft pick. But I think after you've seen how far he has to go, I mean, remember when Baker Mayfield got dumped on the waiver wire, and granted, he had a much bigger contract than Malik Willis.
Oh.
Only one team, the Rams, were the only team that put in a claim for him. Now, that may have been because of his contract, but Baker Mayfield's a whole heck of a lot more NFL ready and has a lot more skins on the wall than Malik Willis does. My thinking is at this juncture, you might be able to slide Malik Willis onto your practice squad and get him through waivers unless he really shines in training camp and preseason next spring or next summer.
Terry, I most of the time agree with you on this one. I totally disagree. There are going to be a lot of people jump at Malik Willis and say, okay, let's keep him a month. And let's see what we can do. And then the next team says, okay, let's keep him a month. There's no way there, in my opinion, the Titans can keep him on the practice squad and keep him. Too great an athlete. Somebody may take him, try to talk him into playing inside receiver or safety or something. I mean, this is a great athlete, and he's not costing you very much money. The difference in him and Baker Mayfield is millions of dollars, and why somebody wouldn't jump on that. I think it's going to be – that's why I think that's going to be a big decision too, Terry, is Josh Dobbs plays well Saturday, and I think he will. Whether they win or not, I think Josh Dobbs is going to play good, and they're going to have to sit there and say, we got a backup. Now, what are we going to do with a third-round pick? I wouldn't have taken the guy in the third round because we're trying to build a team right now, not the future this year. I would have not done that. I think that's another bad decision by the Titans, and not get a really good wide receiver, another one, an offensive lineman. You get a lot of centers and guards right in there now, a lot of them. And I just thought Willis was kind of out of character unless you say, ooh, we stole one, he's our future, and he don't look that. So it makes it look like it was a bad pick to me.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. I mean, you don't think that Willis would make it through waivers. Does he have trade value?
Yeah, he might have that now. That's a possibility. That's a possibility. I don't think you're going to get a lot for him, but I think you could trade him. I think you might get a fifth-round guy or something like that and trade him.
It would be a losing return on investment there, trading the guy who was a third-round pick.
Not if you don't think he's your answer. That wouldn't be a losing investment.
Well, let me try it this way. Terry, privately, do you think they have already given up on him?
I don't know if they've completely given up on him, but he certainly has not instilled very much confidence from them in him, I should say.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
What do you think?
Me, I don't think they've completely, but if Josh Dobbs does this again Saturday and plays as good or better than he did last week, I think he just jumps him. I think this weekend, that's the big piece, is Josh Dobbs.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Let me try this one. I brought this up, I don't know, a week or two ago. They've had more injuries in the last 2 years than anybody. And to be honest, I don't think it's even close. And I've thought that somebody in that organization has got to be instructed to do some deep dive on what's causing it. You all agreed with that. Terry, do you see any sign from that organization, even though right now they're dealing with, this winner-take-all game, but come Sunday, if they get their butt handed to them, then they got to start facing this stuff. Are they of the mindset to do that, or are they just going to look the other way?
I think they have to be. I think they have to leave no stone unturned. And I think Mike Vrabel is enough of an answer guy, a guy who wants to know the why and the how. And, as far as what's going on, I think he would want the answers there. And I'm pretty sure that Amy Adams Strunk would like to have some of those answers too. It may be that it's just horrific luck over the last 2 years. But if there's a deeper reason for that, I think Mike Vrabel is going to want that answer.
So, Watson, let's say that everybody wants that. Who do you turn to conduct it? Is it in-house? Is it somebody that comes in that kind of gets treated like crap because, he's the one that's, going to go to the principal and tattletale? How do you even do that?
Well, I think it's 100% Mike Vrabel. I think Mike is the one that's going to dab into this. He's going to look everywhere and say, what in the world is causing this? And he's going to call everybody he can call, look into everything, talk to everybody. I don't think this one's going past Mike. He's going to handle this one. And Terry, I know we're about ready to go here, but I loved it in the press conference the other day when a guy asked Mike, well, do you think your physical style of play on offense has caused all these injuries? Do you remember that ask? And boy, did that crawl all over him. He did not like that question whatsoever. That's why I think he's the one that's going to be looking into all of this and saying, why me? Why us? Why has this happened? And I don't think it's the physical style of play. Even though I think that's a valid question. I think whoever asked it has every right to ask it, but that's not the answer to this. It's not their style, because that's not what's happening in practice and all the different things. And they shorten games. Their style ought to keep you healthier because they play fewer snaps than a lot of these offenses do anyway.
It's going to be interesting. And I think you hit on it a few weeks ago, Watson, when we were talking about this, is that nowadays in the NFL, teams don't have two-a-days anymore. They don't beat on each other every day in camp for a month. There's very few padded practices during the course of a regular season, and all that's done in the name of player safety. But when you cut some of that out and then you go and try and play a physical style of football, I do think that, you're not as prepared for that maybe as you would have been if you'd been hitting twice a week.
Oh, 100% think that's a major problem here is they've taken all the contact. I've always heard us all as coaches through all the years, the wording was in the summer, pad ready. You've got to be pad ready to play. And what they mean by that is pad conditioning and taking blows and handling the blows and get up and hit and do it again. And you condition your body for that. But when you shorten all of that, Terry, and then you add 2 games on in the last couple of years into the season, that's not a good combination, in my personal opinion. Everybody's having injuries. Everybody. We may have had more, but everybody's having them. And the league better look into this because they're going to hurt this game if this keeps up, in my personal opinion.
Don't disagree.
Terry, it would require Roger to quit counting the 44 million, 43 million, 200.
Well, he could just pass that around a little bit and he could not have to count it.
He'd have more time to figure this out. Terry, thank you as always.
All right. You guys have a good one.